Okay, I want you to do something for me. Just for a second, close your eyes. Picture yourself sitting in a classroom. You can hear that low, annoying hum of the fluorescent lights buzzing overhead. There's a piece of paper on your desk. It's a math test. You look at the first question, and you know this stuff. I mean, you spent hours last night studying, feeling like you finally got it. But now, with that clock ticking on the wall, something changes. A cold wave just washes over you. You're staring at the numbers, but they don't look like numbers anymore, do they? They look like some kind of ancient, secret code. You try to reach into your memory for that formula, that step-by-step process you memorized, but it's just gone. It's like trying to grab a handful of smoke. Your mind feels totally blank, just filled with fog, and that's when the panic starts to creep in. And right there, in that quiet moment of desperation, you make a decision. You tell yourself, I'm not a math person. And that thought, right there, is a tragedy. Not because you might get a bad grade, but because it's a lie. It's a story you tell yourself that can literally limit your potential for the rest of your life if we don't dismantle it right now. So let's have a conversation about hope. Here at Brainpower Academy, our whole mission is to help you understand and upgrade your own thinking. In this explainer, we're going to grab that fear, put it under a microscope, understand exactly what it is, and finally dissolve it. If you've ever felt that test day panic, I need you to know you are not alone. And if you're ready to face this head on with us, do me a favor and hit that like button as a little commitment to yourself. All right, let's get into the good stuff. We're going to start by looking at what is actually happening inside your brain when you freeze up. And here's a spoiler. It has nothing to do with how smart you are. It's all about biology. So, seriously, why does your brain go blank? You know, most of us just assume we're missing some kind of math gene or something, but the real science tells a completely different story. When you look at a tough math problem and feel that jolt of fear, your brain is actually reacting as if you're facing a real physical threat. It's something called the amygdala response. See, you have this little part of your brain called the amygdala. It's your threat detector. And the funny thing is, it can't tell the difference between a calculus exam and, say, a saber-toothed tiger. So it does what it's designed to do. It triggers your fight or flight response, flooding your system with stress hormones like cortisol and adrenaline. Now, this is where it gets really fascinating. You've got this battle going on in your head. On one side, you have your amygdala screaming, danger. It's that ancient survival instinct. On the other side, you've got your prefrontal cortex. That's the sophisticated, logical part of your brain that you need for problem solving. But here's the kicker. When your brain is flooded with all that cortisol, it chemically unplugs your prefrontal cortex. It literally takes it offline. So you're not just stressed, it becomes biologically impossible to think clearly. You're trying to do algebra while your brain is getting ready to run for its life. And this is how the trap gets set. It's a vicious cycle. First, you feel the fear. That triggers the brain shutdown we just talked about. Naturally, that leads to poor performance. And then, that failure confirms the story you've been telling yourself. See, I am bad at math. Which, of course, just makes you even more afraid the next time. The loop just gets tighter and stronger. Well, today, we're going to break that loop.
But before we go any further, I want to prove something to you. Right here, right now. I want to show you that your brain is way, way better at this kind of thinking than you probably believe. We're just going to play a quick mental game. No formulas, no calculators, just you and your brain.
Okay, imagine this. There are 3 light switches in one room, and in the room next door, there are 3 light bulbs. You can flip those switches any way you want, but here's the catch. You can only enter the room with the light bulbs one time. After you go in, you can't touch the switches again. So how do you figure out for sure which switch controls which bulb? Go ahead and pause and really think about it if you want. Here's a little hint. Just looking isn't enough.
All right, you ready for the solution? Here's what you do. First, you flip switch number 1 on, and you just leave it on for a few minutes, say 5 minutes. Then you flip switch number 1 off. Right after that, you flip switch number 2 on, and you leave switch number 3 completely alone, in the off position. And then you walk into the room.
So once you're in the room, one bulb will be on, right? That one's easy. It's connected to switch number 2. But what about the other 2 bulbs that are off? Well, you walk over and you gently touch them. One of them will be warm. That's the one connected to switch number 1 because you left it on for a few minutes. And the bulb that's cold to the touch? That has to be connected to switch number 3, the one you never touched at all. You just used heat as a hidden piece of data. If you followed that logic, whether you solved it yourself or not, then congratulations. You just used multi-step logical deduction. That, my friends, is mathematical reasoning. All the symbols and equations you see in a textbook, That's just a language to describe this exact kind of thinking. You have the hardware. The problem isn't the hardware, it's the software. It's your mindset. How'd you do with that riddle? Let us know what you were thinking in the comments below. I'd love to hear it.
So, if we all have the hardware for this, why does math feel so different, so much harder than other subjects for so many people? Well, the answer lies in how math is built. It's what you'd call ruthlessly cumulative. Let me show you what I mean.
Think of math like building a skyscraper. Now, in a subject like history, if you totally space out and miss the week on the French Revolution, it's okay. You can still jump back in and learn about the Industrial Revolution. But math doesn't work that way. If you're missing a foundational concept from the third floor, there is no way you can build the fourth floor. The entire structure just becomes unstable. For most people who struggle with math, the real issue is a single missing brick. Maybe you were homesick the week your fifth grade class covered fractions. You never really got it, but you kind of scraped by on the test. Well, fast forward a few years, and suddenly you're in algebra, and nothing makes sense. Why? Because algebra is built on top of a solid understanding of fractions. And you start thinking, wow, I must be getting dumber, when in reality, you're just trying to build on top of a whole.
And here's the thing. You can't just power through it. You can't force your way past a gap in your knowledge. You have to go back and find that missing brick. So in this final section, we're going to talk about the secret, the key mindset shift that separates the students who struggle forever from the ones who actually master this stuff.
And if any of this is starting to click for you, if you're feeling that little spark of hope, then go ahead and subscribe to the channel. Join our community of learners who are ready to take back control of their own thinking. It's all about seeing learning not as some kind of race, but as a process of careful, deliberate construction.
You know, this whole mindset shift I'm talking about, it's not just a theory I read in a book. It's deeply personal for me. I can still remember the day I got a test paper back with a big red letter on it that just crushed my soul. But that failure, it ended up becoming the single most important lesson of my entire life. That one massive failure forced me to completely re-engineer my entire approach to learning. So what is the one technique, the systematic approach that I discovered that can finally break this cycle of fear and help you rebuild your foundation brick by brick? We're going to lay out that exact strategy in part 2 of this explainer. If you're ready for that plan, make sure you're subscribed and you've got notifications turned on because you are not going to want to miss it. I'll see you there.
All right, welcome back to Brain Power Academy. If you're just joining us, this is part 2 of our deep dive into the math myth. In part 1, we talked all about the hardware, how our brains can literally change and grow. Today we install the software.
So just to quickly recap, last time we covered this incredible idea called neuroplasticity. And the big takeaway? Our brains are not fixed. They can physically grow and get stronger with effort. But, you know, having the best hardware in the world doesn't mean much without the right software. And that's exactly what we're digging into today. The actual strategies that build understanding that actually lasts.
And hey, real quick, if this is the kind of stuff that gets your brain buzzing, if you're all about expanding your mind, do us a favor and hit that subscribe button. We're building a whole community of curious thinkers right here, and honestly, we would love for you to be a part of it.
Okay, so to really get why this software is so critical, I've got to tell you a story. It's a story about a pretty epic failure of mine. A moment where I was absolutely convinced that my own hardware, my brain, was just fundamentally broken. This was back in 11th grade, pre-calculus, and I had studied for weeks. My textbook was glowing. It was so full of neon yellow highlighter. I walked into that midterm feeling totally prepared. But then, as I sat there looking at the questions, it was like trying to read a foreign language. Just nothing. I walked out of that room feeling completely numb, just hollowed out. And the result? A 42%. I can still feel it, you know? That hot, burning shame creeping up my neck as I folded that test paper, just trying to hide it from everyone. It didn't feel like a grade. It felt like a final verdict. Like, yep, you've been exposed, you're a fraud. Right then and there, I was certain I had hit my limit, my wall. This was it. My brain just wasn't built for this stuff. But even in that moment, a little question started nagging at me. Was that really true? Or was I missing something? Was something else going on entirely? The answer came from my teacher, and it wasn't what I expected. He didn't tell me to study harder. Instead, he pointed out this huge fundamental flaw in my whole approach. And it all came down to this one critical difference. The difference between being a memorizer and being a builder. What he told me?
Man, it hit me like a ton of bricks. He said, "You're trying to memorize the dictionary instead of learning how to speak the language." And boom, it all clicked. I was treating math like this giant list of random facts that I had to cram into my head, when really, it's a language. It's a system of logic. You have to learn how to speak it, not just memorize words. And that's the absolute core of it, right? The memorizer, which was totally me, tries to carry around every single fact. It's like trying to carry water in a leaky bucket. It's fragile, it's temporary, and it is exhausting. But the builder doesn't carry the facts. They carry the core logic. They can rebuild any formula from scratch whenever they need it because they understand why it works. That kind of knowledge, that's durable. Okay, let me give you a super simple example. The area of a triangle. We all memorized 1/2 base times height. But you don't have to memorize it, ever. All you need to do is truly understand that a triangle is just half of a rectangle. That's it. You picture the rectangle, you slice it in half in your mind, and boom, the formula just appears. That's what I mean by building, not memorizing. So this is the million-dollar question, right? How do we actually do that? How do we stop being fragile memorizers and become these durable builders? Well, I'm going to give you 3 very specific tools for your toolkit. This is the new software. All right, here they are, the 3 core programs we're going to install today. First, we've got the toddler interrogation. Second, something called productive struggle. And third, the legendary Feynman technique. Let's dig into each one. All right, tool number 1 is the toddler interrogation. And it's exactly what it sounds like. You know how a little kid can drive you crazy by just asking why, over and over again? Well, that's about to become your new superpower. For every single step of a problem, for every line of an equation, you have to ask yourself, why? Why did I just do that? And if you can't answer, you've just found a gap in your understanding. Your mission is to hunt down the answer to every single why. Okay, our second tool requires us to do a bit of deprogramming. See, for our entire lives, school has taught us one thing about mistakes. They are bad. That red ink all over your paper, that means you failed. It lowers your grade. It feels like a judgment on who you are. But what if I told you that's all wrong? In the real world of learning, mistakes aren't failure. They are pure gold. They're data. A mistake isn't a stop sign. It's a giant flashing neon arrow that's pointing exactly where you need to focus your attention. It's a roadmap to getting better. And this idea is the core of what we call productive struggle. So here's how you actually do it. Next time you get something wrong on a quiz or practice problem, don't you dare just erase it. No, you're going to circle the exact spot where you went wrong. And then you're going to be a detective. Ask yourself, was this just a dumb calculation error or did I totally miss the concept here? Then, right there on the page, write a little note explaining what your mistake was. And just like that, that failed test isn't a source of shame anymore. It's now the most powerful, personalized study guide you could ever possibly have. Okay, before we get to our final powerhouse technique, I want to pause for a second. Let's be real. We've all got that one topic that just makes our brain hurt. That's our nemesis. For me, for a while, it was trigonometry. What's yours? Is it fractions? Calculus, statistics? Drop it in the comments below. Let's get them out in the open. I'm telling you, there is power in just naming the beast. All right, our third and final tool is named after the brilliant physicist Richard Feynman. And let me tell you, this one is brutally effective. There's no place to hide. Here's how it works. You take any concept and you try to explain it in simple terms. So simple that a 6th grader could get it. And you'll notice something. You'll get to a point where you start to stumble or where you have to use a bunch of jargon. That right there is the gap in your own understanding. It's like a truth serum for your brain. Now let's pull the camera back for a second, because what we're talking about here, these techniques, this isn't really just about getting better grades in math. It's about something so much bigger. We're talking about turning the entire process of learning into a kind of resilience training for everything else in life. I want you to really think about this idea for a second. Math is the safest place in the world to practice failing. Why? Because the stakes are so incredibly low. I mean, think about it. If you mess up an equation, what's the worst that can happen? You get a red X, nobody gets hurt, nothing blows up. It is the perfect controlled environment to practice one of life's most important skills, dealing with frustration and failure and getting back up again. It's like a gym for your emotion. And it all comes down to this one tiny but massive mindset shift. The old way of thinking says, I don't know. Period. Full stop. It's a statement of defeat. But the builder's mindset,
It adds one single beautiful little word at the end, yet. I don't know, yet. See the difference? You've just turned a brick wall into a starting line.
So let's just step back and look at the transformation we've just mapped out. In terms of your knowledge, you've gone from memorizing to truly understanding. For skills, you now have 3 powerful techniques for deep learning in your toolkit. But the biggest shift? It's your mindset. You now see challenges not as judgments on your intelligence, but as fun puzzles to be solved. And the big takeaway, the thing I really want you to hold on to, is that the resilience you build here, you can take that everywhere. Look, if any of this resonated with you, if it shifted your perspective even a little bit, chances are you know someone who's struggling and needs to hear this too. So please, share it with them. And of course, subscribe to Brain Power Academy so we can keep going on these deep dives together. We're all in this journey of mastering our own minds.
So there you have it. In part 1, we confirmed you have the hardware. Today, we've installed the software. The system is ready to go. So the only real question left is the one you see right here. What puzzle are you going to solve next?